This is Marc HAIRAPETIan for the culture magazine Spirit, the Smile and the Storm, and the YouTube channel TheSpiritMeets, and this is Gints Zilbalodis. He created really a wonderful film. I call it a masterpiece. The name is Flow. It's about the survival of some animals after maybe a natural catastrophe. Is right? Is it a natural catastrophe? What brings the animals together?
Yeah, we experienced this story through this cat's point of view, and the cat doesn't really understand where there's this flood, and for that reason also the audience is not told exactly where it came from. And I didn't want to waste time on kind of giving long exposition about all the backstory and the reason. I think I just wanted to focus on the characters, so we don't really see where this flood comes from.
But can we say this, that is Flow also the long version of your short film Aqua, because it was also with a cat?
Yes, it's a kind of adaptation. It's not exactly the same story because, yeah, when I was in school, I had a cat like this, and I made a short film called Aqua. It's a simple hand-drawn film, and it was just about the cat's fear of water. But then many years later, I decided to revisit this idea. But this time the focus is more on the cat's relationship with the other animals, which were not in that short film. And the reason for that is because I used to make all the films by myself, including my first feature film Away, which I wrote and directed and did the music and editing and everything. So this is the first time I'm working in a team. And for that reason, I also wanted to tell this story about the character who was this independent cat, and it has to learn how to work together with others, and it's about like the story about the making of the film itself. So that's the big difference between Aqua, the short.
The cat is a leading actor, but there's also a beautiful golden retriever in it, and also some other animals. How did you choose different animals? Okay, cat and dog, I can imagine, of course, yeah, they are different, but also can stay together when they are young or maybe in a crisis. But the other animals are different, so how did you choose them?
Yeah, so I had also two dogs, which are the inspiration for this main golden retriever dog. And so I wanted to show how this cat learns how to work together and how to trust others. But I didn't want that simple message that working together is good and being independent is bad. For that reason, we have this dog who is basically on the opposite journey as the cat. It starts out always looking for someone to tell them what to do and giving direction. But throughout the story, the dog learns to be more independent. And so I think it's like I wanted to show the positives and negatives of both of these ideas and let the audience figure out what is right, actually. And I think the truth is somewhere between these two extremes. And all the other animals, I have less experience. Unfortunately, I've never had a pet capybara or a pet lemur, but I wanted each of them to be quite distinctive and unique in terms of the silhouette and also their voices and personalities. So each of them are kind of, there's a lot of conflict between them. They have different kind of ways of perceiving life, but they're all kind of looking for the same thing, which is kind of a place they belong to, the group that accepts them. They're looking for kind of their group. So they were all kind of chosen thinking about that main theme. But hopefully we can really relate to all of them. There's no like antagonist. Maybe the nature is the antagonist, but these characters, I wanted to have, they're flawed, but they're interesting, but they're not just good or bad. They're more in this gray area. But it's kind of like a casting process with actors where you kind of see how they might interact with each other, and if there's some comedy which might arise when we put them together, but also some dramatic moments. And they all kind of fight and are very kind of have very these goals that they want to achieve. But the only one that's really at peace is the capybara. this very calm and peaceful character who is maybe more like this mentor figure for these other animals. And I've seen these images and videos online of capybaras like being very friendly to everyone. They seem to get along with any type of animal. And I thought it would be both funny to have a character like that, but I think it can also be quite profound, that even in these very extreme situations, there's this very peaceful and chill capybara who's kind of, never worried about anything.
What happened to the human beings? They are gone.
We don't see the humans in the story, but I've left some clues for the audience to kind of try and figure out what might have happened for themselves. I think it's more interesting when the audience has to pay attention and actively kind of participate in the storytelling. I'm not just spoon-feeding this exposition to them. I think that's kind of boring to like explain everything too directly, but we did leave some clues for audience to figure out what happened before and what also might happen after the story. Maybe you'll not catch everything on the first watch, but if you pay close enough attention, you might discover multiple layers to the story. But all the films I've done, I haven't used any dialogue, really. I feel like that's I feel more comfortable telling stories through images and through motion and music, and for that reason I never considered putting people in the film, because I wanted to have these characters act like animals. They're not like these talking animals like you see in some other films, and I think like we've seen those kind of films so much, and me personally, I'm starting to get bored of that. And I think animals are so interesting and funny. I don't think we need to change them to be entertaining or interesting. So we try to keep them as grounded as possible, to kind of have them act as real animals.
This is also an idea what Stanley Kubrick said. When you remember a film, the most powerful or touching moments are always with music and the silent scenes, also without dialogues. This is what, and even he had very good dialogues in his films, but when you think about Kubrick films, they are iconographic with the images, and also with the using of music. So maybe it's also for you interesting.
But I don't consider this film as silent, because I would rather describe it as dialogue free, because of course they don't speak, but the sound and the music does so much in this film. We recorded this big orchestra to create that huge kind of musical landscape, and I agree. I don't remember really the famous lines from films. I don't remember. Even the story gets fuzzy, but I tend to remember the images and the emotions that it evoked. And to me, that's something that's very unique to cinema. I try to make a film that can only be done in this medium. Maybe you could do something like this in other mediums, but it would be a completely different experience if you would do it in radio or theater or paintings. And so we can only do this in animation specifically, telling this kind of story, and I feel like seeing it on the big screen like really benefits this. Of course, every filmmaker would say this, but because there is no dialogue, it's really about the experience of kind of. I know there are so many nowadays like TV series, especially where you can put them on the background on your TV and do something else and just listen. And you can understand everything just by listening, and they don't tell stories with the language of cinema. I feel like they could just be like radio plays, and I try to do something that's opposite, which you have to pay attention to it, and if you do, you get rewarded by like this experience, which hopefully will stay with you.
And the film is very touching, but not in a cheesy way like some Disney films. This is also the good thing, because you let the animals be animals. And the touching thing is when they are very different, when they try to work together also to help the other animals. Remember the tree, when the boat is hanging on the tree, and then everybody feared it goes down to the water. So they work together. This was also an amazing adventure scene in some way, I can say.
Yeah, it was important to. I didn't want just like a happy ending or just a sad ending. Hopefully, there's a bit of both. I think in real life, things are not that simple where you can just fix every problem and have a happy ending. I think life is more complicated. So I tried to find something that feels honest, where without spoiling too much. But I think the cat eventually does learn to overcome its fears, but there are still some things that you can't fix about yourself. And I tried to show this idea that you have to kind of learn to accept certain things. I feel that's a more kind of honest, emotional kind of reaction to that. I think if we have everything in the end where everything is solved and perfect, that would be cheesy. And I think you have to like. But I was quite afraid about like ending on kind of this, which I felt. Usually you expect this a simple happy ending. So I was quite nervous about that for a while, but once we've had the music and once we had the animation, I was quite relieved that it actually, I think it does work quite well.
In the end, it's very sad with the whale.
It's sad, but it's also happy as well. It's bittersweet, I would say.
Yeah, we want not to spoil it too much, but this was also an amazing scene. You use multi-plan camera, or how you film all and how you create it? Can you tell us a little about the artistic process?
Yeah, so because there's no dialogue, we use the other tools of cinema, which I found really exciting. And camera is probably one of the most important tools to show emotions and ideas. And I didn't want to film this film in a conventional kind of way, using like standard close-ups and wide shots, and I wanted the camera to be like be involved in the storytelling. It's very close to the characters and it's following them almost as if there's a real camera operator holding this camera handheld. I wanted to create that immersive feeling that you're with these characters, you're not observing them from a distance. And I wanted to have these long shots, which is a technique which hasn't really been used much in animation. So I guess I was more inspired by some live action films that use this technique, and it creates that sense of real time. Every time you're cutting, you're kind of reminded that you're watching a film, at least subconsciously. But when you're kind of doing these long shots, you almost forget to blink because it's like this constant movement. And but it was really complicated to figure it out. It took me like a year and a half to figure out all the camera movement. And usually animated films are done with storyboards, which is like a hand-drawn sketch of the whole film, where you kind of figure out the layout and the images. But I didn't do that because the camera is moving so much. It's impossible to draw all these perspective changes, and instead I would create this environment directly in 3D, and I could explore it with my virtual camera, almost like a live action location scout or a documentary, and I could find some ideas very spontaneously and make some discoveries, and it's very creative and improvisational process. But unlike live action films or documentaries, I can adjust the set. I can even move the mountain if I need it to get the right shot. And yeah, it's I did that myself. Usually there's a big team of storyboard artists who design everything, but to me that's I need to go through that process because I'm not just copying the script. It's almost like I'm adapting the script. It's like another draft of the script where I might add some moments that were not even in the script, and I might realize that something which I had written doesn't work visually. So I need to be very open and to new ideas, and I wanted to avoid that feeling that everything is constructed. It should feel like we're discovering these things, and it has life and these imperfections, which of course are there for a reason. In animation, everything is there for a reason, but hopefully it does feel like we're just spontaneously discovering these things.
And superb is also the music. How did you find this composer?
Well, I do the music myself, actually.
Yeah. I thought there was another guy who was doing it.
Yeah, it's on my first film, Away, I did the music myself, but in this case, I started making the music, but the score is somewhat more complicated. My first film, the score was more minimalistic and kind of sparse. But yeah, I needed some help to finish the score, so Gints Zilbalodis, the other composer, helped me to make it more cohesive. But music is really important in this film, especially because there is no dialogue, and actually write the music really early while I'm still writing the script, and usually music is done at the last stage, but I find it not really the best way to work. I think the music has to really lead everything else. It's so important. It can't be just an afterthought, and it gives me ideas for the story. There's some pivotal scenes which I came to them through music. It gave me ideas, and I can edit the film using this original music. I don't have to use temp scores, which is a technique that's done usually in filmmaking, where you use music from other scores and ask the composer to make something similar. And I think it's not a very creative way of working. But in this case, I could use the original music, and actually I wrote a lot of music. It's like almost 7 hours of material. And of course, we only used less than 1 hour, so there's a lot of leftovers. But I could, when I'm editing, I have all these options to choose from, so I can just pick the right ones and the best ones. And actually, I write the music on my laptop. I don't play any instruments, and I didn't study music, so I kind of write it on the...
You can't read notes? You can read notes or not?
No, I can't. But then Gints would orchestrate it, and we would record it with real instruments, and we had a big orchestra, which was really amazing for me to hear.
Yeah, this sounds really good. I would really love to listen to the whole soundtrack if it's possible.
Yeah, it's available. You can find it.
Okay. And now you're a specialist for animation film. But can you imagine also to do a live action film?
Maybe eventually I'd like to try it, but it depends on the story. Because flow could only be done in animation, because of the animals and the water, and so if the right story comes along, I'd like to try it. My next film is still animation, but I'm interested in challenging myself and trying different techniques, and I don't want to make the same film over and over, and so I'm open to that.
And the title, Flow, was it the first choice, or you had an idea for another title? Why did you choose Flow?
This time I came up with the title pretty early. Sometimes it's a very late thing. But this was pretty obvious. I didn't think about it too much, but I like short titles. I like titles that look visually nice and that sound nice, and but in this case, of course, water is very important, and flow is related to that. And I didn't think about it when I was making the film, but later I've been asked about this, and I think the meaning kind of can be thought of. The main character is always kind of stubbornly doing things its own way and kind of fighting this world, but later it kind of accepts everything and basically goes with the flow. That's the meaning of the title.
In the end, a little brainstorming. I have a poll in my Spirit is Smile in the Storm magazine where I ask actors, directors, and other human beings about their favorite films of their life. Can you name me now spontaneously 3 of your all-time favorite movies, and please give a short reason?
All right, so it's very spontaneous. maybe I'll mention Children of Men, which is an inspiration in the camera work in this film. I will say Punch Drunk Love, one of my all-time favorites, which I can watch anytime and I still get like emotional, even on the 10th watch. And I will say The General, the Buster Keaton film.
Yeah.
It's
silent movie.
Silent, yeah, and it's so simple, the plot, but I think that's what makes it brilliant. How simple it is. I think these simple things can be a lot more complicated to do than like very complex plots, and so yeah, it's really amazing what they were able to do.
Also an inspiration for Flow.
Yeah, all of these films probably. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just want to know, you have 2 dogs. What kind of dogs?
I have 1 dog. Well, my parents have this dog. I don't have one because I'm traveling so much. But yeah, one is a Labrador and one was a Golden Retriever.
I have Siberian Wolfdog Husky. I showed you the picture, and his best friends are really Golden Retriever and Labrador. He's crazy for it. Even he's also a boy. When it's a boy, it's no problem. They are friends, like brothers. Cool.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Gints, for the interview. I wish you success and luck, and go on with the good work. And maybe we have 1 or 2 Oscar nominations for the film, but more than the awards is the idea how you create the films and stay in contact with the audience, and also that the audience like it. So I wish you the best for your career.
Thank you.
Thank you.